The higher you go in grade and position, the more you're going to find yourself in a cone of silence because bad news won't reach you, good news will get inflated, and other information will get filtered. And before you know it, you're going to find yourself walking in the wrong direction alone. And that's how leaders lose their true north. It's not from incompetence, it's just from distortion.
You just heard Lieutenant General retired Milford Beagle warn about one of the most dangerous traps that leaders fall into as they rise. He calls it the cone of silence. The higher you go, the less truth you hear, and the easier it is to lose your way. If you've ever wrestled with uncertainty, self-doubt, or the pressure to always have answers, this conversation is for you. Welcome to the Intentional Leader Podcast, the place to be refreshed and encouraged as you lead yourself, your family, and your team. I'm Cal, and my guest is someone that I've admired for years. Lieutenant General Milford Beagle is a retired 3-star general who most recently served as the commanding general of the U.S. Army Combined Arms Center, also known as the CAC, and the commandant of the U.S. Army Command and General Staff College. This is the hub of professional development across the Army, and he commanded that. He also commanded the 10th Mountain Division in Fort Drum, and earlier Fort Jackson and the U.S. Army Training Center. He has a powerful new book out titled When the Map Runs Out, Values, Judgment, and Clarity in Uncertain Times. In this conversation, we dig into how to provide clarity even when you don't have certainty, how to stay grounded, humble, and self-aware as you rise in leadership, how to build confidence and resilience when the map in front of you falls apart. And make sure you stick around to the end because General Beagle shares one daily habit that helps him process negative emotions and build resilience. And he also shares 3 questions that every leader should ask to know whether something is truly important. And before we dive in, one of my favorite things that I do each week is send the intentional letter, a short Sunday email with one idea, one reflection question, one powerful quote, and one personal development resource. If you'd like to join thousands of leaders around the world who read it every week, you can sign up in the show notes. And if you haven't subscribed, whether you're watching on YouTube, Apple Podcast, or Spotify, please hit that subscribe button. There are some incredible guests coming your way as we finish this year and move into 2026. All right, please enjoy this very special conversation with Lieutenant General retired Milford Beagle. All right, well, I have been really excited about this one. General Beagle, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Cal, I'm honored. I'm deeply honored to be on and been a fan of your work and what you do and the guests you've had on already. So I am deeply humbled to be with you today.
Well, I am so excited about your new book, When the Map Runs Out. Thank you for writing it. And I was telling you before we hopped on that leading in uncertainty is such an important thing for us to be talking about because it feels like the world is more uncertain than ever. And so thank you for putting your wisdom into this book. I'd love to start out though with going back a little bit. When do you think you first felt like a leader?
Yeah, I'd go back to my first introduction to my first platoon and because it was a feeling. I mean, the feeling hit me like a ton of bricks. And here's how I got introduced to my first platoon. And I'll try to make it very short. So I arrived at Fort Polk, a place I didn't want to go. I literally called my grandma and I'm like kind of in tears a bit because I'm like, the Army hates me. They sent me to this place. I didn't know Louisiana had a post. And I get there, I'm literally hiding out with a buddy because I arrived on Thursday. And I said, they won't find me till Monday. And that's when I report in. But sure enough, they call me. And back then, no cell phones, no pagers. And he was living in the IHG. And they called me on a Friday and said, well, you need to be at the company by 1600 today. And I'm like, they found me. And I'm okay. I didn't know where the company was. So I got to the company. I get to the front door and the company XO meets me. A guy named Harvey Johnson, great guy. He said, I'm Harvey. I'm the company XO. I'm going to take you to see your platoon. And I'm like, okay. And I'm not prepared. I am so not prepared. Mm-hmm. And we walked through the company area from front door to back door, just like straight shot through. And there was a company formation already out there because it's Friday, 1600 and end of the day, right? And I look over and he said, there's first platoon. He's going left to right. First platoon, second, third. He said, third platoon is your platoon. And before I knew it, I'm standing there just mouth open, eyes wide open. And when I looked back to like ask a question, he was gone. He'd already snuck back in. So I just walked over to the platoon, walked behind it. So I knew, where to go. Stood behind the platoon. First sergeant's giving a safety brief. And, he completes it. And the first sergeant looks at the platoon sergeant, says something, Platoon sergeant looks through the ranks back at me and is like, LT, do you have anything?
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, no, nothing. You know, and I'm like, I'm stunned. And
Yeah.
the one thing the first sergeant said, not to make the story longer, he said, you know, because it's Friday, no shenanigans. I mean, he used a lot of profanity, everything else. And so I'm standing there trying to get myself together after the soldiers broke up and trying to introduce myself to the platoon sergeant. This motorcycle comes down the street like a crotch rocket, right? Comes down the street on one wheel. And we're all looking and we're like, who is that? And I'm thinking in my head, please don't let that be one of my soldiers. I don't even know him yet. And sure enough, within a matter of seconds, somebody said, who is that? And they yelled out the soldier's name. Which platoon is he in? Oh, that's 3rd platoon, which was a platoon I had just, you know, received like 10 minutes before. And I'm like, oh, this is a great start. So I felt like a leader, not a very good one, but I felt like a leader then because it just hit me right in the face.
Did you feel insecure going into that?
A little. I mean, I you know, just come out of basic course, you know, brand new Ranger tab, the stitching hadn't even dried yet, you know, all the badges. I mean, so I felt good. I just felt overwhelmed in that moment because it was a point of how it was introduced to you that you weren't ready for it, you know, but I was confident, but just shaking a bit. And then that bit of shenanigans at the front, the motorcycle down the street. I mean, the way you're introduced, first sergeant's now visibly upset. And he's like, well, let me see the platoon sergeant and platoon leader. I'm like, I just got here. I'm already going into the first sergeant's office, you know? And, but after that, I'm like, okay, let me set my feet because it's game time at this point.
Yeah.
And
Well, let's come back to this because I think that's a perfect example of your book of when the map runs out, because that's a moment of uncertainty. You had this plan of, okay, Monday I'm going to get in front of my platoon. You probably could map out what am I going to say, how am I going to approach this, and all of a sudden Friday afternoon, you're standing in front of your platoon. Like, what a great example of what your book talks about. Did you have leadership experience prior to that? I know you were an athlete. We were just talking before you hopped on that you were really successful in track, especially. You did hurdles, which sounds scary to me. But yeah, did you have a lot of team leadership experience prior to joining the Army and becoming a platoon leader that you could kind of reference back to?
Yeah, Cal, I wouldn't say a lot. I mean, in high school, I mean, I think I remember being more of a good follower because, I mean, you know, like I mentioned our star athlete, you know, in school and some others, and they were great leaders on the sports field, right? I mean, and you follow. To be a good leader, you got to be a good follower. But I was never really, you know, called or never really felt compelled to like step out and lead, you know, so to speak. I mean, because never was one of the team captains, which I was okay with, but I just wanted to contribute and do my piece. And then follow those that were, you know, given guidance and direction, you know, from a peer perspective. When I got to college, it really didn't start to come into play until about my junior year because, as I mentioned before we got on, I was injured from track, so I couldn't, you know, complete my collegiate career as an athlete. Switched over to ROTC, but that was from a dare with, you know, 2 dudes that lived in my dorm, and they were like, you can't come out and do what we do because we go out in the woods and we shoot weapons and we do all this stuff and we do physical training. I'm like, okay. And so they dared me to come out after I got recovered, and I did. And then I started to discover, hey, this is like team sport. And like, even with this group, there's not a lot of leadership, even though we're learning about it. And so I found myself stepping forward because some things became natural. The physical fitness aspect of things, the ability to work well with others and get others to play. I mean, things that I, you know, learned as a follower in high school were now starting to translate. I'm like, this is pretty fun. And I kind of like the people that I'm around. And then that extended to what I was doing in school. I mean, different clubs. Now I'm the president of the criminal justice club. I majored in criminal justice. So then it just started to grow from that point. And the map kept running out. And so very quick story on this one. I'm the president of the criminal justice club. And the night before the big event, actually a week, you know, we were planning, we're doing all these things, and the instructor was the advisor, and she's like giving us guidance and who's going to be there and all this stuff. And she had an appendix attack like a week out, and so she calls me. She's like, "I'm not coming. You've got it. You've got to run everything, put it all together, go through it." Good thing at that point, being an ROTC, I had learned MD&P, so I brought in my classmates and I said, "We're going to do MDMP, mission, military decision making process to like figure this out. And that's exactly what we did. We just framed it out, facts, assumptions, everything else. It went great. And, but again, another spot where, your map just runs out on you.
So tell us about that. It's a perfect segue because the book that you just released is called When the Map Runs Out. Tell us why you chose that name and what that means for leaders.
Yeah, part of it was a little bit of, frustration and, something that we talked about earlier. I've read a lot of leadership books, and I mean, I don't say it's the exact number, but there's roughly 60,000 leadership books out there. And I'm not disrespectful of those who have written them, and I love many of them. But in a lot of cases, we're given, frameworks. We're given some type of guide. I mean, those type things. And I said, if I ever do a leadership book, I'm not going to try to present a framework, something to take away, because to me, it feels a little bit gimmicky in some spaces, but it's not always going to fit. And that's when I got to the metaphor of like, what would make this really stick? The map and the compass, because there's a lot of leadership books about true north, but true north is about you, the individual, and the compass is more so you, the leader. And that true north is your needle, and your needle's got to be calibrated because that is what guides you, which means that's what's going to guide the organization. And the maps are those things that give us the illusion of clarity. You think about it, your plan, your strategy, your framework, your dashboard, they give us the illusion of clarity. It's like, oh man, this plan is great. It's awesome until it stops working. And we can date that back to Helmuth von Moltke the Elder, 19th century Prussian, who said, no plan survives first contact. He was exactly right. And when that plan, falls apart, then what do you fall back on? I mean, don't reach for another plan. Because at some point, that's going to become a crutch. And in the Army, we have the saying of always have a pace plan, primary, alternate, contingency, emergency. That's a lot of plans for one mission. So it kind of proves a point. Plan won't survive first contact. But having a good value point or, reference of values, I mean, that's really your true north, your needle. That's what's going to guide you. And you always want that to be calibrated because the organization is going to look to you when that plan runs out. And what guides you is what is going to guide that organization because it's what you value, what you believe. That's what's really going to guide you through those tough, uncertain times.
We were talking before we hopped on about just how much I appreciate your reading commitment. You're always posting on LinkedIn about new books that you're reading. And in this book, When the Map Runs Out, you have a lot of great quotes that you weave in from other authors. So I know you deeply appreciate reading and learning from these other books. I'm curious, do you think When the Map Runs Out, what you cover in this book, do you view it as in addition to those frameworks that are already out there? Like, do you find this is like a nice complement to that? I guess I want to make sure it's clear for the listener. Are you saying, hey, frameworks, dispense with those? This is kind of your new guide, or is it more just, hey, these frameworks are good, but this is also a different paradigm for how to look at leadership, and often those frameworks are not sufficient to fully capture what a leader needs, kind of in their toolkit.
Yeah, and it's more of the latter. So you accurately laid it out, more of the ladders. And the other tools and books out there, frameworks, I mean, they are great, but it's like having a map with no compass. I mean, that map is only going to be as useful as, the terrain it shows you. But with the compass now, that's where I think, what I'm bringing to the table is like, that's you, right? You have all the maps in the world. You have all the frameworks that you can use at your disposal that'll be useful to you. But then how do you reflect on yourself? Which is why I put the field drills in there, is like, you've got to take the little short chapters that I wrote and like now reflect that on yourself. Now put it in practice. I love to use the term is protein for the practitioner. The other books have a lot of things in there that you just may not need. Mine, I view it as pure protein because this is like, how do you calibrate yourself? And similar to a compass won't calibrate itself. Neither can a leader. So you need to understand those two key disciplines of bearing and calibration. I mean, your bearings, that's about you. Your self-awareness to know your strengths, your weaknesses, your blind spots, biases, you name it. That's bearing, and you've got to own those. But then calibration is bringing in others and using others to help you check your bearing. So now that truth teller is like, you know what, Cal, I know you think this, but here's not, probably not the right way to look at it. Somebody's checking your bearing, and like, are you going to take that, or are you going to like throw it away? So how do you do that for yourself? So you're constantly calibrated for when that moment comes. The organization is going to look to you, or even if it's just you, what's going to steady you? And you don't want your compass to be, distorted by all the things that could distort you day in and day out, distort us in life, in organizations. Stay calibrated, because when that moment comes, you're going to be what you have, your values and your beliefs.
What I hear you saying is, or what comes to mind is just this idea of authentic leadership. And I'd love for you, because you have a diverse audience listening right now. And when I say diverse, what I really mean is you have people who are introverted, who are quiet, who aren't the rah-rah, charismatic, get out in front of you type leaders. And then you have those types of leaders too, who are very extroverted. They love to talk, and they maybe are that stereotypical leader that you think of that's going to get in front of an organization and move them. And then you have everything in between. You have people who are big picture thinkers, short term. You have planners, spontaneous. You have all types of people, strengths and weaknesses. And I'm just wondering if you could speak to your view on their ability to be effective leaders. Because I think there's a lot of people out there that say, sir, I'm a quiet person. I don't really view myself as a leader, or I don't think I could ever be effective as a leader.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that in terms of becoming an authentic leader kind of within what God's given you, essentially, within the strengths and weaknesses that you are, and kind of finding your authentic voice as a leader?
Yeah, for all the introverts out there, I mean, I am one. I am one, right? And most people wouldn't believe that. And I read this stat a long time ago, and it's still true to this day. When you look at higher level leaders, CEOs, general officers, I mean, at one point, it was like 80% of our general officers were introverts. And when I found that out, I was stunned, because then for me, I'm looking at leaders like General Petraeus, General Perkins, I mean, some others, and you're like, I've seen those guys in action. They're not introverts. And they totally are. Now I see it. And the same with me and a lot of my peers are introverts. I mean, like in some cases, like huge introverts. But you see them out and doing what they do, you wouldn't think that. And I know there's a thing where you can be a little bit of both. I think it's ambivert. I think if I'm using the term right.
Yeah.
And then you have your pure extroverts. I mean, that just feed off of it. But I always would tell, younger leaders, don't try to be anybody else. I mean, you only have the energy to be you, and use that energy to the best of your ability, because that's what I did. I'm not the rah-rah cheerleader, and even all these years of leadership, in some cases you have to be, in some cases you don't. But the one thing I would say is essential is always be willing to adapt. I was watching a YouTube video the other day. I'm going to go back and watch it. I stopped because the guy was making great points. He was laying out different buckets of like leaders and different types. And it wasn't so much based on being an introvert or extroverted. He was just based on like style. And that always causes me to cringe a bit, because you're going to have to adapt, I think, your style, your own strengths and abilities to wherever you are, and to those teams and people that you're around. I mean, that's, to me, truly the gift, versus you just get stuck in like one way of doing it, one approach. It just won't work well. And the most you're going to be is uncomfortable, and you're going to constantly be uncomfortable, because you're constantly taking those strengths and trying to adjust them, or you're going to find underdeveloped skill sets and you're going to try to make those better. And like one of mine forever was public speaking. I didn't like to speak in front of large groups, but that was an underdeveloped skill set. And then you had to completely change that, because now you're talking in front of a company. Now it's a battalion. Now it's a brigade. It's like, you know what? You can't keep hiding that. So some things you're going to have to develop. You're just going to have to embrace that and do it. But who you are internally, I would say don't change that, because that is the energy that you can maintain all day. As soon as you try to be like somebody else, now your energy starts to wane, and you don't have the energy to do things the way you really want to do them, and to do them effectively, because you're trying to do them like somebody else, and that absorbs and causes you to burn a lot of calories unnecessarily, in my view.
Yeah. I love the way you laid that out. I think of kind of two things at the same time: knowing yourself so that you have that inner compass. And also with that, you know when you're adapting, you know when you're having to flex outside of that area of comfort. And so it's probably going to be a little exhausting. Maybe it feels a little unnatural, but you know that sometimes that's what's required for you to lead in the, for you to be the leader your team needs in that moment, in that context.
Yeah. And you have the energy to do it. And like me, if you're, an introvert, I mean, you'll go expend a lot of energy, and just like an iPhone, I got to come back, recharge,
Yeah.
plug in, but I know my windows when I need to do it, how I need to do it. And then you're always ready to go. Just like every time you grab your phone, hopefully it's not on red, but when you grab it, it's green. You know when to go plug in and how to take those breaks. You don't just overextend yourself because you know that's how you are. Whereas an extrovert, you can overextend yourself all day. You're just gaining more energy, but then how do you slow down and really listen? Because your point, you're out talking, you're doing everything else. So your underdeveloped skill set is your ability to like listen and then be empathetic to those around you because you're moving so fast. And again, that's not being critical or disrespectful, but those are the underdeveloped skill sets that you have to be very mindful of to keep your bearing.
I want to hear more about how you became more comfortable with public speaking, but do you, just to kind of close this out, do you think that all the different types of personalities that we just talked about, can all of them be effective? They take your book here and it helps them understand their compass. I guess my question is, do you think that almost any personality can be an effective leader?
Yeah, I'm a total believer.
Okay.
One thing that you can't do though, Cal, is, and I've seen it, and at Leavenworth when I was a commander of CAC with pre-command courses, is like never find yourself in a position where you have arrived and you can no longer improve. It's like, well, I am who I am, and I said, you're a dangerous person, and I would start that with all those future battalion commanders, brigade commanders, and sergeant majors, and I would tell them a story of a battalion commander that came through and said the first time he came through pre-command course, he felt like a dry sponge, and he was just soaking up everything. And then, came back as a future brigade commander and felt like a saturated sponge. Nothing was sticking. And at that point, you're like, you're dangerous because now you've arrived. You can no longer learn. You're not going to change, and everybody's going to adapt to you. And leadership doesn't work that way. I mean, you're always adapting to that team, that organization. And the one thing that I would do starting out, and I've done it since I was a 1-star at Fort Jackson, and a great practice, no, actually a brigade commander. And it was how to handle me. It's a 1-page document you write, and you give that to the organization. You go, this is me. And it's not so much how to handle you in the sense of I'm not going to change these things. It says, this is where I am right now. And it's very hard to do, to describe yourself to other people and literally give it to them, like to the whole formation. And for example, this is not me, but I know I'm grumpy in the morning. I've got to have at least 1 cup of coffee, type thing. All these type things that are like that you're putting on paper is extremely hard, but at least the organization knows nobody's guessing. They're not guessing. But you're also saying, this is where I am now. I'm not going to be there like 6 months, 8 months from now because I'm going to adjust. I'm just telling you, this is how you handle me for right now. You'll know these little quirks or whatever, and they're not pet peeves, but I'm going to grow. So I'm doing this more so to check myself and just kind of give you a little bit of warning. Give me some grace when, might seem a little bit edgy if I hadn't had my cup of coffee. That will change. I've got to grow and grow out of that given this organization.
You keep throwing out new stuff that I want to follow up on. This is great. What are a couple of the things that were in that document at certain points? I'm just curious. What are some of the things that you would tell them? This is how to work with me, or this is how I am.
Yeah, like me, now. I don't have, as the more senior I got, the less I had patience for like details, and I would put that in there. I said I'm okay with details. I know how to work into the details. I just don't like details, and I literally laid it out that way. Matter of fact, when we're done, I'll send you my document so you can see it.
Yeah, I'd love to.
And it was like, those little, nuances. And I said, I like jokes. I like being around people that are funny, but I'm not funny. But I don't like people that at the expense of others try to be funny.
Yeah.
And just little points like that. And those things, resonated, but it really, Cal, helped, like I said, helped me be clear more so with who I am and who I was to that organization, and they could see it because these are things that you just know you were gonna do. I mean, and because they were your habits, in some cases, some of your beliefs. And whenever people come in and they're like laying out, that I've had it happen to me several times, like all the details, and you sit there and kind of look and they're like, "Sir, yeah, I know you said it. It was in your document. You don't like detail." I said, I don't. But here's the thing. This case, we've got to walk through these details. So I'm okay with it because you're not trying to make people shy away and go, "Don't ever bring the boss details." I'm just telling you, I expect you to do good work. That's why I'm telling you, because if you're bringing me into the details, there's times that you need to, but a lot of times you don't. And that's what I'm expecting. So you get a lot out of it. That's, somewhat, two-way in the sense of expectations, but you're expressing those through your shortcomings and areas that you're not the best developed.
Yeah, and you're letting them know that you're aware of these things, so they don't have to wonder like, why is he like that? Or and then also it seems like it accelerates the speed of trust. It's like, hey, we're gonna jump right in. I'm gonna tell you so that you don't have to guess. This is how I operate. I could imagine. I mean, even just that description of that conversation about the details. It's just you're going in. You're not having to fill in gaps. People aren't having to wonder like, what is the boss? What does he think about this? Like I have a leader who she mentioned, hey, in the afternoons, just how I've learned living with myself this long, I've learned this, that I kind of need a cup of coffee, around 2 or 3. And if I haven't had that, I might be a little low energy. And her sharing that was so helpful because people would be giving her a briefing in the afternoon and it seemed like she was kind of low energy and that they didn't like the presentation that they were giving to her. Mm-hmm. But knowing that about her was like, oh, okay, I can fill in that gap with her self-awareness and her self-knowledge. So anyway, I just think that's such a helpful thing for leaders to do.
Yeah. No, you reminded me of one because I was trying to think of like a really good one I put in there. And the other one that is really me, if something upsets me, I'm going to get very quiet. But I explained. I said, I'm not mad at you. I'm not upset with anybody. I said, that's just me because I'm trying to process in my own brain. Yeah. And so if you see me walking around and I'll still speak, I'll still be helpful. Cordial. Yeah. Hi, Cal. How are you? All things are good. But there's not a lot of chit chat. And you're like, oh boy, something's wrong with the boss. I'm processing. I'm not pissed. I'm not upset. I'm just let me process and then it'll click. But it's not a big mood swing of I'm grumpy, mad. It's just, I'm just quiet. So don't let that quiet scare you. And they would see it. I mean, every organization at some point in time would see that. For me, is like we come into a meeting and it's not, and I never had a big spectrum of like really, really high and really, really low. It's just, we'd hover kind of high majority of the time, but if it kind of hits somewhere in the middle, they're like, oh boy, processing. But they were okay with it. We still execute it just like we would, but they just knew I'm processing. Hey boss, you good? I'm good. And, short answers like that, they leave you alone, but it wasn't them, because most people would think, did I say something? Did I do something wrong? It's like, no, this is all me. That's what I'm telling you. It's all me because I'm trying to process something.
That is such helpful information to have. Otherwise, I'd be filling in that gap with, the boss he's upset with me. There's something I did, or creating that awareness, not just for yourself, but for your team. Super valuable. What, going back to, you mentioned that you were not super comfortable public speaking. And I want to ask this because I think there's a lot of people who can relate to that. It's like public speaking is one of the biggest fears out there. But also I view you now as really an effective public speaker. That's part of what you're doing for a living now as you move from retiring as a 3-star general. How are you able to get more comfortable doing that?
As a lot of things that we do is reps and sets, but even with the reps and sets, I mean, I think I'm never happy with those because I in my mind, I've seen where I want to be. And I saw that as a battalion commander a long time ago. And I was okay, public speaking with the team, with the battalion, most of it being pep talks and those type things and other ways of communicating. I was okay with that, but really relaying a message and getting your intent across and like persuading an audience versus doing something else, in terms of that audience and their thinking, I never got quite comfortable and never got totally comfortable with, some of the other models that I've seen. I had one division commander, which was like, to me, the epitome of a great public speaker. And he's just so smooth, so very polished. And I'm like, that's what I want to be. And, and I've never, even to this day, considered myself, having got there, because it's something that's got to keep you trying to improve. And I think I've gotten okay, I mean, good at doing it, because I've always kept that bar so very high. I mean, before anything I would ever do, even if it was a promotion or a re-enlistment, things that, because it's public speaking, very small degree, I'm going to rehearse and go over it and go over it and go over it until where it comes out like I could do it in my sleep. Well, there's a lot of work put into it. And that one just kind of got me to a space where I can do it better, but I still put in that work, to this day, to be able to come across in a way that, people are happy about, people are proud about when they see you and when they hear you.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great lesson for all of us. It's, you may have an area that you want to improve, and you can either say, I'm as good as I'll ever be, or you could say, you know what, I'm going to put in the work. I'm going to put in the reps. I'm going to learn from people. I'm going to become a sponge and try to, I'm noticing this trend with the senior leaders, especially, who I most want to follow and I'm most inspired by. They've had success, but they're still hungry. Like, they're still reading, they're still asking questions, they're as curious as ever. And I think that's kind of an anecdote to ego a little bit, I have to imagine. And I want to read you these quotes that you put in your book, which are hilarious to me, but also very true. So you said, when you were getting selected as a general officer, and this is in the Army, you had two friends that I think this was separate advice, perhaps. Yeah. One said, the higher you go, the more you have to fight your way out of the cone of silence. Mm-hmm. And then another one says, when you pin a star, you're not funnier, better looking, or any smarter, but people will just make you think you are.
Yep. So true.
So talk to us about ego, and this is especially because there's a lot of successful leaders listening who are getting promoted, different positions. Talk to us about ego, and as you get more and more senior, how you can fight that cone of silence and this perception that, man, people are laughing at my jokes all of a sudden. Like, I am really funny.
Yeah, and you have to be mindful of that. And that was like the best advice ever. And the second part of the cone of silence, I'll start with that one. If I were to continue with it, is true. The higher you go in grade and position, the more you're going to find yourself in a cone of silence, because bad news won't reach you, good news will get inflated, and other information will get filtered. And before you know it, you're going to find yourself walking in the wrong direction alone. And that's how leaders lose their true north. It's not from incompetence. It's just from distortion. I mean, everything around you, and just think about that information that should have flowed to you, is just not getting to you. And the higher you go, every soldier that you go to that's, subordinate to you, hey, how are things today, troop? Oh, sir, they're great. Man, they're awesome. I mean, yeah, good to go. And there's a complete dumpster fire going in the motor pool right now, but they're like, oh, it's great. And you're just like, oh, yeah, I'm looking how great I am. And you start reading your own press clippings and drinking your own Kool-Aid, but you have to break out of it. So that was like the best advice I ever could have received. Like, you're constantly every day breaking out of that cone of silence, because you'll find yourself in it. And then the other which is a distortion, just like a compass. A compass is going to get distorted. If it's too close to metal, too close to anything that hums with energy, it's those same things. I mean, you get more rank, more positions, more titles. Oh, every joke is funny. Oh, you're so much better looking today. I mean, you're taller. I mean, all these different things. It's so not true. Nothing changed in one day. You changed one rank and nothing changed except the rank. But you believe somehow, I got smarter, I got funnier, I got better looking. Yeah, go look in the mirror. And if you don't keep those things in check, that distortion will have you walking, and you'll find yourself walking in the wrong direction by yourself.
How did you find that you were able to counter that as you got more senior?
One, thinking about the fight, it's like literally fighting your way out of that cone, is always going down. I mean, talking to soldiers, when we say it, sometimes people don't necessarily do it, but then being able to have those conversations, asking for feedback. I would never have a counseling session where, I don't care if it was a lieutenant. I mean, even my time as a 3-star, a major walking out of my office, even my, captain aides that, I had, okay, give me some feedback. but they knew. The first time is very hard. Like, sir, you're great. You're awesome. I've got you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I said, next counseling session, come back with some better feedback, like critical stuff, and once they got comfortable with me, then they would do it. And I would make them do it all the time. Literally, if I came from an event and as soon as we got in the truck, my driver, E6, my aide, we're all in the truck. Okay, guys, give me feedback. Oh, sir. And they would be comfortable. And other people, if they were to see, a captain or a lieutenant and the staff sergeant or a sergeant first class talking to a 1-star, a 2-star, a 3-star, that way you'd be like, that's your boss, right? I mean, because nobody ever heard it, ever overheard these conversations, but they got used to giving me that feedback. You always have to have those truth tellers that are around you a lot that will just give you unvarnished feedback, because I could easily go to somebody else. Oh, sir, that was awesome. Great. Yeah, always awesome. Always awesome. And then my team would absolutely tell me the truth.
Mm. Were you intentional about how you would react when they would give you negative feedback? Because I think a lot of leaders, they silence and they chill negative feedback often because they have such a strong reaction to the first person. Like, you're in a meeting and someone gives some feedback that the boss doesn't want to hear, and then everyone kind of takes notes. So I'm wondering, were you very intentional about how you responded? I mean, it sounds like you were in that first council. Like, you were actually encouraging, like, hey, this is not authentic enough. Like, next time we come, I want to hear more.
Right. Yeah. That type of attitude, and very intentional to the point of welcoming that feedback. So example, if you were to say, hey, you know what, sir, you kind of stumble, over that last speech and a couple things there, like, really, at what part? Well, here, and here. Yeah. You know what? I felt the same way. I'm glad you pointed that out. So you make them feel good about the feedback they're given versus like completely pumping the brakes, because you won't get any more. You won't receive it. And I think with anybody else, the same is true. If they give you that snippet of, negative feedback, it's like, that's very interesting. I mean, and you're not being disingenuous. You're being totally genuine because you want to pull the string on it versus like, yeah, I thought that was pretty good myself. I mean, what didn't you like about it? I mean, now the gloves are going to go up and you're not going to get feedback. But with my team, that's how I built up their confidence to truly give me like unvarnished feedback. And they would give me some brutal feedback. They're like, sir, you said like 15 ums in the last one. I mean, now they're counting. I mean, they're now they want to get after it. They want to give you like detail of things. But you have to, like anything, groom them, make them comfortable, in that space. And you get it. In some cases, I would, tell them, things that, we would see together. We'd see somebody else do something, and you're like, man, I wonder why their team didn't tell them that. Or, did you notice this? And we have those conversations. So then they could see the results. It's like, well, if their team had to mention this, then that leader wouldn't have looked crazy doing or saying whatever they did. Thank you for doing that for me. And now they have ownership in me, because it's like, oh, shoot, my boss is going to get up there and like, he's not going to look crazy or stupid, because we're going to make sure we've straightened this out. And they would every team I've ever had, all embrace that.
Speak to the leader who is hesitant to really ask for feedback. And I think there probably are a lot of reasons why leaders feel that way. I know I've had moments where I've prepared really hard for a presentation and I give it my 100% effort. I mean, I have literally put everything into this. And if I'm honest, sir, after it, when I'm asking people for feedback, there is that part of me that's like, I just want them to tell me it was amazing because I just worked my butt off.
Yeah.
And so I wonder speak to the leader though that's hesitant to lean into the discomfort of the feedback.
Yeah, you have to, because you're right. That's exactly where our instincts lie, is you want to get that praise, you want to get that applause. But if you really want to be good, it's like the applause is like mildly interesting. I mean, you want it as bad as you want it, but you need the other side of it. You need that tough feedback. You need that criticism. You need those things. And it hurts when you get it because you put in the work. And I've been crushed even as a 3-star doing things. I'll write a paper, and at Leavenworth, it was, brutal because I'd write an article and send it over to like the experts, the PhDs, and like, hey, give me feedback. And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be great. I spent a couple of weeks on it, going to be awesome. And they tear that thing apart. They're like, no, the rank just could not even carry the weight. And I'm like, oh my God. I mean, I feel like I'm in like high school. I mean, like really break you down to a point where you're like, I don't want to do it. And I've done that even as a 3-star. Some of those articles I get back, I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to follow through with that. I'll just let that one sit, come back to it later.
Mm.
And then, you're like, okay, let your
Yeah.
ego go, pride, put it away, and go back to work, because they're trying to help.
Yeah.
They're not trying to hurt you. They're
Yes.
trying to help you. And I published a lot of articles, but it was pain points of just
Mm.
going through that, because you just don't want to feel that way, and you don't want to feel like you're not worthy, or you didn't put in the right amount of work. But that's just going to make you better. And I love the saying of feedback is the breakfast of champions.
Mm.
And that is a quote that I've used, a lot, because you look at real champions, people that are really, really good, they take that feedback. And with young audiences that remembered Michael Jordan, I would use that. I'm like, think about Mike. Mike had a shooting coach. So how is that shooting coach going to go to Mike? Hey, Mike, you know what? Your shot's a little bit off. Are you really going to tell Michael Jordan that? Well, guess what? He took that feedback. But you can go to Wayne Gretzky, whoever your
Yeah.
sports figure
Yeah.
is. They had a coach somewhere telling them, yeah, that was a sucky swing, Tiger. I mean, you might want to change your
Mm-hmm.
swing, type thing. But that's what made them who they are, because somebody was going to tell them what others wouldn't, or couldn't tell them to their face.
Do you think you can be confident and humble at the same time?
Yeah, and I think it's a balance. I mean, you have to have that confidence, and also be humble, because if not, you're going to step over that line, and now you've stepped over into hubris. Now you're arrogant, because you've stepped over. You're over confident in all things that you do, and the competence may not be there. But a lot of
Yeah.
times you see the reverse of imposter syndrome, where you have the competence but you don't have the confidence. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people are like, man, you're really smart, you're really good at this, but you're like, I'm not. I feel like an imposter, and I've had that happen too at many levels. You go in and you're like, I should not be here. And I literally told that story when I got to Leavenworth. I didn't tell it when I got there. I told it when I left, because nobody knew. I said, when I found out that I had been nominated to go command the Combined Arms Center, I said I was freaked out of my mind, because
Mm.
I felt like a total imposter going in there, because I knew my predecessors, guys like General Rainey, General Petraeus, General Brown. I mean, all these people that had commanded CAC. And oh, by the way, it's the intellectual center of the Army. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm not that dude, but I was picked for a reason. And
What were some of the specific? I'm sorry to cut you off, but this is really good for leaders, because I've noticed that when leaders get picked for a big position, something they view as big, the first thoughts that flood in are insecurities.
yeah,
So I'm wondering, what were some of the specific insecurities that popped in your head when you got selected?
yeah. One, it was just with the, I would call it the name brand recognition, because again, you put General Petraeus' face next to CAC. I mean, that's what people think about.
Mm-hmm.
You put General Brown. I mean, all these people that had commanded CAC before, and went on to do great things and made huge impressions across the Army. I mean, impacting our doctrine, leader development, education, and everything that you touch. And I'm like, I'm not that person. I know who I am. I know what I'm good at. Tactical side of things, I can lead a division, leave me in a division all day. Core would have been awesome, but like CAC, that's like for the smart guys. That's really, really the
Mm-hmm.
intellectuals, of our Army. And you look at what they wrote, their articles, books. I mean, all these different things. I'm like, I'm not in that. I'm not in that category. I'm not in that space. And that held for like a solid 6 months. And there's, I think, a level of truth with fake it till you make it. But during that fake it phase, there was a lot of learning. I mean, like deep
Mm-hmm.
learning, accelerated learning to like get there, because now I'm here, and I can't back out, can't quit. I've got to live up to not others' expectations, but the expectations of those in this formation, and putting in a lot of work. My wife will tell you a lot of stories, coming home. But then after that, you get to that point, you're like, okay, now I've got my feet. Now I've got my legs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to compare myself to the others. That kind of goes away too. I don't care who commanded it before. Now I have it. Now that confidence starts to come back, but you've got to battle through, that period. It's just like going to the gym. You can't bench 250 right off the bat, and you feel a little bit shame about, like, I've got 235s on here, and you don't feel good about it. But 6 months down the road, you're throwing up 345s on each end, and you're just like, yeah, okay. You just got to get through that period. Just get through that period, and I think the best of us will go through that.
Do you think that's what this book is going to give people? It's this ability to do exactly what you just did, which is I'm going into a situation where I'm feeling insecure, something changed, whether I got to put in a new job or I got called in on a Friday afternoon, or and you share a story, you're the commander of the 10th Mountain Division, and in 96 hours, when it's an Easter weekend, you got to get your guys ready to go to Ukraine. Is this giving them the ability to get to that place of confidence? That's kind of what I feel like this is. It's like I'll go from on that roller coaster of insecurity to like humility to clarity to I'm confident enough in my compass that even when the map runs out, I can navigate.
Yeah, and that's exactly a key part of that book is we all have confidence when we have a map. We have something, we have a framework we can hold on to. But if I take that away, you still got to have that confidence without it, and that's part of what I say even in the later chapters in the conclusion is like having that confidence to lead without the map, because it's going to go away at some point. But you're still confident because you know who you are and you know where your needle is, and you're going to be the compass to orient everybody else, because when it runs out, it's not just you, it's the organization as well, and they're looking to you, and you have got to make sure you can orient the organization. Because one thing, Cal, I think is true, people will be okay with a little bit of uncertainty. If you don't know, they're not going to expect you to know like everything.
Yeah.
But they can't live without clarity, and I've lived that too, even in my last job. Is just provide clarity, and you can do that through what you believe, what guides you, and that helps set you, because you can't go back to a plan or strategy or framework and extract those things out. But if you say, you know what, guys, I'm not too certain about like where this is going to go, but I can tell you here's where I see us and how we're going to work our way through it. It's like, okay, I'll take that clarity over that certainty all day. And I think sometimes we get those confused, or leaders get that a little bit confused, because they think everybody wants certainty. You got to give me like the answers, and you got to have all the answers. Like, no, you're never going to have all the answers. I don't care what level where you go, you're not going to have them, but you will have clarity, and you just have to search for it and then know how to communicate it.
I do think a lot of us as leaders, we feel like if we don't have an answer, we are not leading well. Like we just kind of feel this inner, like, I got to have the answer. I'm the leader. When you say clarity, what do you think we need to be clear on? Because there's probably some people listening. They're like, hold up, you just said that there's uncertainty, but then now you're telling me that I have to be able to provide clarity. Those two things feel mutually exclusive. Either I'm certain and I'm clear, or I'm uncertain and I'm unclear. But you're saying you can have uncertainty and still be clear about some important aspects of leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give you an example. So my example at Leavenworth was when we were talking about merging all the organizations. I mean, the commands, TRADOC with AFC, and reducing people and everything else, and furlough. I mean, it was, a lot of uncertainty, and people were just like really freaking out. And we didn't really have a lot of answers because a lot of things weren't coming down. It wasn't very clear early on how this was going to go and what was going to happen, who was going to lose their job, and what did the merger mean, and all these different things. So I got with my deputy. I said, we're going to do a town hall and bring everybody in. And the rest of the team, and I pulled the team in and said, what do you think we should talk about and how do we lay it out? Well, sir, we don't know anything. We don't know anything. I said, I know we don't know anything. And well, what are you going to say? Because you don't know anything. And I said, I'm going to tell them we don't know anything. That's the clarity. We don't know what we don't know. And I literally had a slide, and my planners at the time, because I drew it out. I drew the slide, gave it to the planners, said, make this slide, and then we'll go in and do the brief. And they came back and they kept polishing the slide up, right? And I'm like, no. And the slide, imagine a road, just like a curvy road that kind of goes off into the top of the slide, broad and gets narrow. And then imagine signposts on that road, and they're like big signposts, and they just get smaller as the road goes. That was the slide. And on that signpost, it had certain things like our mission, things that, I knew weren't going to change. I mean, this is what we're going to continue to do. And here's some of the signposts that I'm reading, because some of these things you can generally see it coming. And so I go through this whole spiel, with everybody in the auditorium. There's at least 2,000-3,000 people in those virtually. And I said, so here's the plan. And everybody's kind of like now on the edge of their seat waiting for like the boss is going to reveal this big plan. That's because we don't know. And there's some things that are unknowns right now that will continue to be unknowns, but here's the plan. And up comes this slide. And it's like a cartoonish, just like I described, these little weird looking signs. And I said, we have signposts. And these are the signposts that I'm reading. Because these, I'm not saying they're certain either, but they're pretty clear in the sense of
Yeah.
our mission won't change. This won't occur over here. We're going to continue to do this. I mean, it was that level of clarity. And I got so many, notes and emails back, from the workforce. They were like, you just told us you didn't know what you didn't know, but I feel so much better about it
Wow.
because it was clear. We could still see, and it was just like turn the rest of the noise down because we don't know. I don't know, but here's what we're going to do. And when certain things do start to come into play, here's what it's going to look like for us, and then here's what we're going to do about it. And that was the plan. And I tell you, my team thought I was like nuts for wanting to put that slide up there. I said, but again, it was my needle and it was screaming, just stay that course and show that. But it made so much sense because it was clear and the signposts they could connect with. They realized it was like, yeah, you're right. I got that. Because all the other noise was just clouding, what they were seeing, what they were doing, how they were thinking about it. And you just want to provide that clarity and taking that smoke screen away.
It's like the difference between noise and signal. It's like, okay, there's a lot of noise, but we have some signals that we can follow. Do you remember some of the signposts that you mentioned?
Yeah, the one was about the workforce, and I told them, I said the workforce may reduce, but we're going to have a workforce because guess what we do? And the part of our workforce, there's only things that all of you can do that you can't bring from anywhere else. Faculty, as an example, a professor, you can't just cut a professor and we can't make up for that. Your OCTs over at MCTP, you can't just groom those either because we still have to train cores and divisions. So it's just grounding people in like, facts, if you want to call them that, realities of like, these things won't change. And I'm pretty certain they won't change, but you got to see them in context of how everything else is happening. Then to your point, those were the signals. They're like, okay, I got it. And we will reduce and we will move organizations around, but then here's, how we're going to do it. And so those were some of the things that I put on those little signposts. It was about 5 or 6 of them that were there. And the other, signposts, I really remember this one was transparency. And I said all along, and it was a different color font. Everything else was like red. I think this one was green. And I said, on this journey, the one thing that you will always get is going to be transparency. And that's what I'm doing right now. Me and my deputy up here sharing this with you. You will always, I ask you for patience. And what you should expect back from me is transparency. It's a form of clarity. I mean, they just knew they were going to get whatever we had.
This is a demonstration of confidence, humility at the same time. You're being humble and that you don't know everything. You're acknowledging there's a lot of change happening, but there's certain things we can be confident about as an organization. And for the leaders listening, I think I'll call it a skill, or maybe it's a state, or it's a way of being as a leader. I think this is the most important skill that leaders need to have right now. There's this giant thing, I don't know if you've heard of it, called AI that is going, it is changing everything. And so if you're a leader that thinks you have to have it all figured out in order to lead effectively, I just think you're setting yourself up unnecessarily for paralysis. Yeah. And what people need is they need leaders like you're describing that can navigate uncertainty. So let's get into the compass. So this book does a beautiful job there's also a simplicity of this book too that I think is really important. I think this book's going to be more transferable for people than a lot of books that are overly complex. And I think it is a real art to be able to wade through complexity and come out with something that's simple but still has a lot of depth to it. And I think you do that very well in this book. So one of the things you talk about is your true north and your values. What does that mean?
Yeah. The way I lay it out in terms of the true north, because even when you read other books about true north, it just focuses on the individual, those things that you believe, those things that guide you. And you could, pick a word, pick several words. I mean, and think about your last worst day. I mean, on your last worst day, what was the one word? What was the 1 or 2 words, in your mind or in your heart that like helped you navigate that particular day? That's your true north. I mean, it was resilience, family, faith. I mean, whatever it was, that's what got you through that worst day. And that's your true north. but that focuses on you, but then you're the needle for the compass. So now your organization has values. I mean, your own values, they're going to guide how you make decisions, whether you're conscious of it or not, but they're going to guide, your decision making and all things that you do, because it's coming from what you believe, what you fundamentally believe. And you have to understand the difference between your opinions and everything else. It's like, no, that's a little bit different. Like, what is it that you value? And those things, if you're thinking about it deeply, you can lay those things out. I value integrity. So I know, like, every decision I make, whatever choice I make, is going to be rooted in that. Even if I'm not conscious of it, it's like, that's what I value. It's like integrity. It's going to be above board. Integrity is going to be a part of it. And then there's those other values that, are your guidelines. I mean, they guide you in everything, and that is your true north. But putting those things all together, the needle in the compass with the map, using those things, that's where I think it gives a more fuller picture.
What are some other values that are core to you? You mentioned integrity.
Resilience, empathy is really one of my big ones. I mean, that one's hard. Empathy is so wicked hard.
Yeah.
But empathy, I value empathy because it just gets you so much more when you can really, really get there. And I joke about this one, and I'm going to use it in other audiences. And I said, if you're going to say quit is one of your value words or things that you value, I said, you can't. That's mine. And
you say quit?
Quit.
Q-U-I-T?
Q-U-I-T.
Okay.
Quit. Because part of one of my values is always quit tomorrow. Always quit tomorrow.
So okay. Wait till tomorrow to quit.
Yeah. So whatever comes up, because you're thinking, well, today's going to be that day. I'm not going to, and you can link it to resilience, whatever, but it's like, no, tomorrow. Always quit tomorrow. Okay. Well, tomorrow I'll do it. It's just going to keep pushing you because you keep kicking that can off, but never quit. You can say it different ways. And those are really, key to me, loyalty, and it depends on the organizations that you're in. So, I mean, you can be loyal to the broader organization. In some cases, younger leaders may be loyal to individuals, and you're like, okay, you got to make a distinction between where's your loyalty really lie in this situation, in this environment. I mean, where are you? Because I'm very loyal, always have been, but in placing that loyalty in the right place at the right time is values that are key to me.
What is resilience? Oh, well, let me ask you this, because this is a beautiful story you shared for me, or just kind of a framework or a mantra before we hopped on. So you were is it 300 meter hurdles that you ran?
Three.
Is this in
three
high
in-
school?
Three in high school
and college?
4 in college, yeah.
And 4 in college. And you mentioned that before we hopped on that most people don't want to do hurdles. So tell us why most people don't want to do hurdles, and tell us what that can teach us about life. Because I think this is a beautiful illustration of maybe resilience, or at least other concepts.
Because people don't want to fall. I mean, and those that were on the track team, I mean, nobody wants to do hurdles because, I mean, they see people falling, and then they're practicing running and handing a baton, and they never trip and they never fall, and they're good. But they look over at the hurdlers, and then you just see stumbles and tumbles like all day, like all practice almost, right?
Really?
And
just all the time?
All the time, because you're, with techniques and everything else, and if you do something wrong, because you're so technical, I mean, a hurdle will literally trip you up in a bad way every single day. So you're just locked in because just one, centimeter, just a clip of your foot and you're tumbling. I mean, you just have to be perfect when you really, watch them run.
Good airborne training.
Oh yeah, tons of it. And there's no feet and knees together. You're just like elbows, head, whatever. I mean, and nobody wants to do this. Like, why would I want to go through that pain, to win a race or do something? And oh, by the way, the focus, I've got to do that, in the case of 110 meter hurdles 10 times. So I've got 10 hurdles I got to get over. So that level of focus 10 times in a row, not to fall, don't want to do it. And I think we view life that way. It's like all these hurdles, we want to avoid them, go around them, go under them. And hurdles, you don't really jump. People always, talk about, well, you jumped hurdles. And you don't jump hurdles, you run them because you're running through them is what you're doing. You're not breaking them, but you're literally, if you ever watch a hurtler, they're not breaking stride. I mean, they're running literally through the hurdle. It's just like nothing's there, and you're not jumping. Like you run and stop and jump. You don't. No, you're just running through them, and that's the way you want to attack a lot of different things. And it links to a simple mantra of you can try and fail, but never fail to try. And I would use that, with a lot of young soldiers at basic training. I'm like, this whole environment is designed for you to fail. And young trainees would look at me and be like, because you've never done any of this. A lot of it, you've never fired a weapon, you've never come off a 40-foot tower, you've never foot marched 12 miles. It's designed for you to fail because you've never done this before, and you're probably not going to be good at to start with. But guess what? 10 weeks, you might not be an expert, but you're going to be good at things that you've never done before. So you got to try, right? And that's the thing that you never want to see someone do is like, fail to try. Try and fail all day. But failing to try is a place you don't want to be.
That is such a great illustration. Do you think that also speaks to resilience?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because, to be able to get back up, and that's, the least fundamental layman's definition to me is that ability to bounce back, that ability to get up. Because even if you're running, back to the hurdles race, you'll see hurdlers fall, but you will rarely see a hurdler just stand there and go, just slam the hurdle and get mad. And they're going to get to that finish line. They're still going to keep going. And they're still stumbling and wobbly because you can never regain the form and the speed that you had, but they're going to get through it. And that's the same with anything that you bump to in life. It's like you're never going to get back to the speed you had before you hit that hurdle, but you're going to regain it at some point. In some cases, you can probably regain that full speed, but you have to get back up. And whether you're knocked down 10 times, just get up one more time. Just get up one more time, which is, my point about a value of quit. Always quit tomorrow. Like today is not it. The day is not it. Quit tomorrow. Tell yourself that, and then now you're battling through that day. It's like, okay, when tomorrow comes, I'm going to quit. And then when tomorrow shows up, I quit tomorrow. Keep battling. You always got to keep battling.
And it's almost like, I think the hurdles are a great example. If you build that into your mindset, you're actually getting stronger too as you're doing it. You're getting smarter, you're curious, you're learning, and then you are, I imagine, as a hurdler, like you're getting stronger. Your ability to be more precise on that next run. And you probably, maybe you don't see it like right in the moment or day after day, but over the course of a season, you see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the same in life. And I'm going to pull something. I got it here. Keep it close. I've learned that through journaling as well. So I've been journaling since I was a major.
Yeah.
And it's just like hurdles. Because, you will start, and these, other than the teams I told you about, which will give me brutal feedback, this thing is where my most brutal feedback will go. And what I learned over time, Cal, is when you write down, literally write down, today I just sucked. Today was like just horrible. I just want to quit. I don't like this. I'm not getting it. Write those things down and let it go. And then the next day, whatever, and just keep going. When you reflect back, you're going to see this growth that you didn't really see. You don't really understand how it happened. And you'll go back 6 months and go, man, I was about to like tap out. I'm calling myself like sucky and just like, oh my God, what was I thinking then? Because you're at a different spot. And that's what I've learned. And that's why I continue to journal, because I can have those little, battles and moments of turbulence with myself and then go back later and go, okay, it's kind of like you recorded it. Yeah. You recorded your own growth that you didn't really know.
So for the listener out there who maybe he's never journaled, but maybe he's a little intimidated by the idea of journaling, what advice would you have for them to get started?
Just write down whatever you're thinking, and more importantly, whatever you're feeling. I suck. Yeah. I hate to use that one, but I've done that. No. I use that because I've put that down plenty of times. 23rd, November, 24 November, whatever. I really suck bad today. If you want to explain to yourself why, explain that. Leave it alone. Because the next day, I was awesome today. And leave that alone. Just feel good about it. Leave it alone, and continue to go. But then look back later and go, man, I sucked that day. I was great the next day. Now you're going to start to reflect, or at least see, hopefully, and I think in most cases you'll see growth, even if it's a longer period of every day was just a bad day and you don't know how you're going to get there and you struggle. At some point, you're going to see that growth in yourself when you look back, and that's the beauty to me. Rarely now do I look back because I already know what it's going to say. I started way down here and then all of a sudden ended up here, but I used to really do that, and I got tons of these, and just go back and look and go like, man, what was I thinking? Why did I think that? Yeah. But that helps you reflect.
Thank you for sharing this. And because so many leaders, I think if they're not careful, they think that leaders like you just have great days every day. And just all you experience is a bunch of positive emotions and wins. There's actual science too to back up what you're saying. So from an emotional intelligence perspective, when we write down what we're feeling, we are moving those ideas from the limbic system to the prefrontal cortex. We're now more able to manage them.
Yeah.
It's kind of moving it from that like default mode network to the executive part of our brain. And I do the same thing. It's so funny you said that. I start my day, mine's kind of a prayer journal, and I just write down, Lord, I'm feeling this, and I had this frustrating thing yesterday. I'm tired. And sometimes it's positive. It's not always negative, but I'm actually kind of amazed by it. A lot of it is sometimes like first thing in the morning before I've had my coffee, like it's not a bunch of positive emotions. But then I'll look back and a lot of the things that I was worried about often do work themselves out. So that's one thing I've observed as well. But also just getting it on the paper really helps us begin to manage it. So I love that you're modeling that. And I think all leaders have to have some way to deal with the negative emotions that come with leadership, whether it's fear, insecurity, anger, sadness, whatever.
Yeah, because it's there. It's in that little black book and not here. It's done. Once I put it there, it's like gone. I'm not giving it a second thought. Sometimes something may creep back up, but it's in the book. I wrote it down. Done. It's gone.
Yeah. So one of the things I want to just ask you about as we're wrapping it up here, and by the way, we're barely scratching the surface of your book. So I highly encourage people to go get this book. I would say it's a short read, but I don't want you to think it's a short read and that you're not going to get a ton of value out of it. I think you should work the book. There's a lot of exercises within the book that people can do. But like I said before, there's a simplicity to it that makes it more transferable for leaders. But I want to land the plane here if we can. And it's talking about time and kind of resources as well, because I think those two go together. And you talk about this in this kind of the second part of the book. One of the things that I continue to observe is the difficulty that we as leaders have in staying focused. And I wonder if you could just talk to leaders about that. How do we not let everything become a priority?
Yeah.
Because that just seems to be the temptation in organizational life now. It's like, do more, do more, do more. And that is what success looks like, as opposed to stay focused, kind of, there's this quote I heard recently of diluted focus gets diluted results. And I think that's very true, but that's hard to stay disciplined as a leader.
Yeah. And it takes practice, like all things. And one of the quotes I put in there from one of my great bosses is, a lack of time is a lack of priorities. And it really does. It goes back to that. It sounds very cliche-ish to say, well, you got to have priorities. And there's a lot of things that are important and a lot of things that are urgent. And urgency is like very noisy. It's always like the noise in your head is like, this is urgent, my text, I got this to do. All those things are just like noise, and you have to like move them away. And there's another, quote I put in there, which I would use all the time. And there's 3 ways you know something's important. It's important to someone that's important to you. Your personal presence makes a difference, and it's only going to happen once. And that's a good metric, a good measure to use for certain things, not everything. But you have to give yourself, boundaries like that. I mean, because otherwise, everything's going to be urgent. Everything's going to be a priority, and you just can't do it. And then given the hours of the day, it's a math problem. It turns out to be, it's like physics. You can't do everything. I mean, and how are you not going to dilute your focus? And I would have that conversation with a lot of junior leaders is, don't dilute your focus. I mean, what do you really want to be good at? Do you think, go back to the athlete example. Do you think Michael Jordan really spent a lot of time playing baseball when he was playing basketball? Now, he tried to play baseball, but when he was playing basketball, do you think he really did anything else? Did he try to go rap? Did he try to go do whatever? Like, no, he was in the gym doing that thing because that's what he wanted to be good at. So do that. And I've been asked a lot of times, sir, what are your hobbies? And I said, coming up, I didn't have any. And I said, but I felt bad about it at first because everybody had a hobby. And the more senior I got, the better I felt about it. I'm like, yeah, I don't have any hobbies, and I'm good with that. Because I know I want to be good with my family and I want to be good at work. And like those 2 things, everything else is like noise. I'm not going to spend 8 hours on a golf course to make myself feel good because I've got kids at home. I mean, I can't split that time. And I'm not knocking anybody that has, hobbies or anything else, but that was just me. It's like my way of turning down the noise of like focus on those things that you say you want to be good at, and everything else is turned down. And don't let the expectation of others creep in there too, because I think that is what gets in the head of a lot of people. Because I had that, oh, you don't want to go play golf with us, or you don't want to go hunting with us, or whatever, and all. It's like, yeah, okay, you're still gonna be my friend, right? Yep, I am. Okay, you'll talk junk today, but tomorrow we're still friends. But yeah, I'm not going because I don't have time. And I think turning that noise down, because if they're true friends, you're still gonna have them. If they're not, you probably don't need them anyway. But for you to be good at what you want to do and place your time in those places where you really want to be good at something, turn everything else down, because it's a true statement. A lack of time is a lack of priorities. When you run out of time, we all get the same amount of minutes. It's a matter of what we do with those minutes.
And this is such a great point, because I think we live in a world now where we're more aware of what other people are doing probably than ever before. So there's just this increased temptation to, oh, I should go do that. I should do this. I should do that. And then you've got what you just described, which is people that you see every day who are inviting you to do good things. And how have you been able to remain disciplined about that and at peace? Even just the hobbies you mentioned, like, we feel pressure to do so much. I mean, as a parent now, there's kind of this built-in expectation where your kids have to do 10 sports by the age of 5, and then you have to stay up to date on all the latest sports games, and you got to find time to read, and you've got to lead your team, and you've got to run marathons, and it's just like,
yeah.
How have you been able to stay at peace with what I would describe for you, what you just said, is a pretty narrow path of, I'm going to be really good at my job, and I'm going to be a really good father and husband, and like, I'm going to keep within this narrow frame.
Yeah, and it goes back to your values. I mean, things that you believe. I mean, the faith and the faithfulness to my job, to my family. I mean, that's what guides me, not really anything else. And that and really using that as your true belief to guide you. Otherwise, you're going to be wanting for a lot of things. There's a great book called Wanting. It is an awesome book. And that's pretty much what it's about, because we want other things because we see other people doing it and we try to mimic and replicate. And so we're wanting. And I would say, without reading that book, I just read that book probably a year ago, is, not really wanting a lot of things. 'Cause, I mean, we scroll, you look on social media, everything else, and man, I want that, where you're wanting more. So now you're starting to dilute your attention, your focus, everything, and you're getting distorted by all these things that you want, and you really don't need. You just want to do it because somebody else is doing it. And that was the point of the book, Wanting, is like that mirror image. I mean, because man, you've got a Corvette in your garage, man. I really want a Corvette. I got to, now I'm spending time looking for Corvettes. I'm trying to go find one. I'm trying to, it's like, I don't need to do that. And I don't want what you've got. I mean, nice. And I'm happy for you, but I need to put that attention and focus somewhere else. But I think just being grounded in those things that I, knew from my own upbringing, and in terms of, my father was, a great father, wasn't perfect, but things I wanted to get right. And that being, one of the things that helped me turn down, some of the noise on other things, being a good husband. I mean, I grew up in a family that, split when I was like in the 7th grade. It's like, why didn't they stay together? And then so I know what kept me grounded and focused to not have those things happen. And it's just turned down a lot of noise on everything else.
Well, I have learned so much from this book, and I've really enjoyed our conversation today. What is something that I didn't ask you about that you think leaders really need to know?
Yeah, it's going to sound silly, Cal, but the key thing is just know yourself, and whatever weaknesses you have, whatever underdeveloped skill sets you have, you can improve them. You may not think you can, but you always can. And I would not overemphasize your strengths. You're just going to have those. And I've had that conversation in many counselings. Like, if it's a strength, that's yours. You got it. You own it. You're not going to lose it. So don't overplay it. And that's what you see leaders do a lot of times. They overplay that strength. I'm like, it's yours. You got that one. Nobody's going to take that away. Go look at those things that are underdeveloped and work those. but you've got to know exactly where you sit. Even in an interview, people start with, give us your strengths and weaknesses. And I would say, for people that were telling me they would go do an interview, I said, start with your weaknesses first. Do not dare start with your strengths. And they'd be like, oh, yeah, which means you've got to think about them. So think about those things that you really want to improve on and start that journey, because your strengths are going to be your strengths forever. You can get better at them, not going to lose them. Your underdeveloped skill sets, your weaknesses, those are things that keeps you focused, that keeps you driven.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really easy not to want to look at that.
Yeah.
I know I was thinking this morning, actually, because I was this weekend, I ate a lot of food that I don't normally eat. I've been pretty happy with where I'm at from a fitness perspective, nutrition perspective. And I like didn't want to look on the scale this morning. It was that, and I think sometimes as leaders, like, it's like, we don't want to look at the areas of imperfection or weaknesses, but the more we're willing to look at them, as you talked about, when it comes to feedback, that really can produce some powerful opportunities.
Yeah. That's your bearing check. That's your, looking at that scale, that's your bearing check. It's like, okay, now I know what I know, but you could have ignored it, but always check your bearings.
So tell people where they can connect with you further, and tell them more about where they can find the book.
Yeah. So the book now, I'll start with the latter. The book now is on Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, 2 key places for everybody. There was a direct link out there, and that gave a discount only during the furlough period, because when I went to the publisher, I said, people are not working, might not buy a book, but even if they do, I mean, let's at least try to keep the cost as low as we can. And he agreed to do that, but that will expire on the 1st of December. But Amazon, and they're still reasonable. They're still reasonable to purchase. Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and then connecting with me. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram and X, and people reach out to me all the time. I mean, I do them all stuff. Even when I was on active duty, people would ask, so who does your social media? PA? I'm like, no, that's me. I do all of them. But I didn't spend a lot of time on them. That was the thing. It's like an hour a day, maybe, while on active duty. I said, is all it takes. I mean, I'm not just scrolling all day and I got other stuff to do. Trust me, but it's a place to engage and then also meet people where they are, in that space.
I love it. I'll put links to all that in the show notes. And sir, just thank you for showing up in an authentic way. You are making a big difference. I see the people, including myself, engaging with your work on LinkedIn is where I hang out. And I can just tell that it is really resonating with a lot of people. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for putting in that hour a day to keep help people learn. And I've really enjoyed our time together today. As a couple South Carolina gentlemen hanging out. So I really appreciate it.
No, thanks so much, Cal. It's been truly an honor for me and absolutely a lot of fun.
All right, my friend. Well, thank you for sticking around to the end of this episode. Before we wrap, I want to bring a few ideas back to the surface, because leadership is only transformed when we move from information to implementation. So here are just some practical things that you could go do this week to start to implement a lot of what General Beagle said. So first is consider building your own how to handle me document. General Beagle said, this is where I am right now. I'm going to grow, but I want you to know how to work with me today. So this is not acknowledging things that you won't change, but things you're working on, and just how to demonstrate self-awareness. You can do that too. 1 page, clear, honest, and it will accelerate trust really fast. So that's one practical thing you can go do this week. A second thing is start the habit that builds resilience. Write what you feel. Begin a journaling habit. This is something I have done for a long time. As I mentioned, it's been super helpful. And you could just say, hey, I'm going to do it for the next 7 days. 1 sentence a day. Just start small and just jot down how you're feeling. And you'll see, I think, that just getting that from your mind to the page makes a big difference and increases your self-awareness. A third thing you could do is ask someone for real feedback and try really hard to make it safe for them to tell you the truth. He told us, if you react the wrong way, you'll never hear it again. And that's so true. So this week, maybe ask one person for 1 piece of honest feedback and push them until they give you something that otherwise might be a little uncomfortable. And then make sure you react in a grateful way. And that just starts to build the muscle of asking for feedback. And finally, practice clarity and uncertainty. General Beagle taught us that people can live with uncertainty. They just can't live without clarity. So take one messy situation when it pops up in your world this week and articulate what we know, what we don't know, and what we're going to do next. It's a skill I think that leaders, I know that leaders, all of us, have to develop, especially right now and probably very much into the future as we live in a world that is constantly changing, a lot of uncertainty. So we have to develop that skill to be clear in uncertainty. So go implement those things today. That's just a great way for you to immediately implement what we learned today before you hit stop on the episode. And if you enjoyed this conversation, I'd love for you to share it with someone you know, a friend or a teammate who might be able to benefit. And if you haven't already, please join the Intentional Letter, my short weekly email with one idea, one reflection question, one quote, and one resource to help you live and lead in a more intentional way. You can sign up in the show notes. Thank you for listening, my friend. Go make it a great week. Remember, life is short. Let's make it count.